All right. Hi, everybody. This is Revelation sermon number 12. We are looking at Revelation 12 and 13. The reason I'm doing it this way is because our Sunday morning sermon didn't record, and I wanted to capture the information if you've been following us on YouTube or you watch this in some future time. So I'm going to try to lay it down and give you the information in a non-sermon kind of format. Okay. So here's what's going on. Up to this point in the book of Revelation, we have seen that John is taking all this information from the Old Testament. He's writing really very little original stuff. The book of Revelation is a book about fulfillment more than projection. John is saying, listen, it's all coming true. God is fulfilling his word. He's fulfilling his promises. The things that the Old Testament authors have been talking about aren't just mumbo jumbo. They actually are going to come true. God keeps his word. Huge point. John is going to be super dependent on so many books: Isaiah, Daniel, Zechariah, Zephaniah, Micah. There's so much of the Old Testament is prophetic and written in prophetic tones, and John is getting all this imagery from them. In the book of Revelation, where we are timeline, we are kind of pushing towards the middle of the tribulation. I am a tribulation believer. I think God is going to have the day of the Lord is going to be a thing. God is going to have his day on this planet because God is trying to build a kingdom for Jesus as big as he possibly can. And that kingdom is going to include every single human he can wring out of human history. And God is not going to be satisfied until he puts his king on the throne, fulfilling those promises. We're going to see a lot of those promises today. And John is saying, yes, the world cannot end. It cannot end without these promises coming true in a very concrete way. And we'll see why. And it's super cool and why. So John has been following the book of Joel for the last little bit. So Joel, if you read the book of Joel, it has this locust army that's going to transform. It's going to become more deadly. And then right in the middle of this battle scene, John is going to break his text. And he's going to say, and then I saw a vision. And in the heavens, I saw wonders in the heavens and on earth. And he's going to talk about the coming Holy Spirit. That was the two witnesses from last week. The two witnesses are lined up with Joel's prophecy about in the last days, I'm going to send my word. People are going to prophesy and dream dreams and have visions. And so if you saw last week's sermon, I'm going to have the two witnesses being primarily the Word and the Spirit coming in power and afresh. And when the church in Acts 2 quotes Joel, that's a drop in the bucket for what's going to happen in the end times. Do I think there are two actual people in front of the temple who are kind of putting a face to the global movement? Yeah, I do. So that too. So then Joel goes from there to visions in the sky, wonders in the sky and on earth. So does John. John takes that. He breaks in Joel. The battle scene breaks. And if you read Revelation carefully, you will see that the trumpet judgments are going and they're almost finished. And then John breaks it as well with the exact same thing, wonders in heaven. And then both Joel and John come back to finish up their story because John is telling us Joel is going to happen. So right in the middle of the book of Revelation, John tells the central story of the Bible, really. The central story, like the main story. What's going on? This is the big picture. John is going to break it. What is the central story? What's the central story of the Bible? What does God want? What is he after? And the answer is God is building a family, right? God is building a family. He's building a kingdom. He wants to fill up everything in every way with Christ. This is what he wants. How does he do that? Through his imagers. We are created as the images of God, and we as his imagers are going to fill up everything in every way. The cool thing is we're not first, right? We are not the first imagers. We are not the first sons of God. If you look into the text, it's really an amazing story. Like, before our age was the age of angels, the sons of God from the Old Testament. If the Old Testament's talking about the sons of God, it's talking about God's heavenly council, his ruling kingdom. The sons of God sang his praises as God created the earth. Job, right? God isn't alone. He is over an entire council. He rules among the gods. That's what the Old Testament's going to say. I'm going to show you some verses that were mind-blowing to me when I first began to learn about them and see them for myself. I had such a hard time putting my mind around it, but it's all over the text, and it's really, we're going to see it like crazy today, that God rules in a heavenly council, and he calls those ruling sons of God Elohim. I always thought the word Elohim only meant God. Like, that's what distinguished him. He's Elohim, and everyone else is kind of make-believe. That's really not the story of the text. There is one Yahweh. There is one God creator, one eternal being, one Trinity. That is God. But the other beings in heaven, the other spiritual beings, are called Elohim, and you're going to see it, and it's a trip. Look at this verse. Among the Elohim, look in Hebrew, that's the word. Your English translation probably just has gods, but the word in the Hebrew text is Elohim. Among the Elohim, there is none like you. Lord, no deeds can compare to yours. It's a big idea, but try to imagine God, before creating the earth, ruled in a whole age of angels, and he called them Elohim. They are going to reign. They are spiritual beings. But even there, the text is going to say there's one God. There is one. No one, out of all the Elohim, no one's like you. Like, you are unique. You alone are Trinity. You alone are eternal. God is the superlative of everything and every being that exists. And we're going to see it over and over again, that when you compare well, we'll get there. But there's one being is perfect Trinity, which makes him perfect, which means that we can see in Yahweh the worshiper and the worshipped, the master and the servant, the friend and the friend, the lover and the one who's loved. That's the amazing thing about a Trinity being, a triune being, is that when God was all alone, he was never alone. Like, he knows what love is. He knows what worship is, because he's on both sides of it all the time. That's why in the gospel, when Jesus comes to reveal the Father, he comes as a servant. Why? Is God only a servant? No, but does God serve? Yes, he serves each other. Read Hebrews 1 and 2. Amazing text, how God the Father calls Jesus his God, and he says, you sit on the throne, now let me go serve you. Let me go make your enemies your footstool. One being with three personalities mixed together over a council of other gods, over a council of other created beings, but created very powerful spiritual beings. Here's a text. Here's some more text. Listen to these. But they're not equal. They're created. God alone, Yahweh alone, is what we would think of as God. But the Bible's going to use this word Elohim to talk about God's counsel, and it's pretty crazy. Why does God have a counsel? Because he is filling up everything in every way. Spiritual beings over spiritual things. We are physical beings. We always will be. We occupy a space in heaven, a new planet. right? We are flesh and blood. We will have new bodies that inhabit a planet. We're physical beings. Those are spiritual beings. Who knows what else is coming? Watch these texts. Awesome stuff. Psalm 95 says this, "Come, let us sing for the joy of the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and song. For the Lord is the great Elohim, the great King above all Elohim." Crazy verse, right? He is the great one. He is the king. He's the King of kings. He is the Lord of lords. He is the king over all of the Elohim. He rules. None but him. Look at the next one. Oh, that's the same one. Okay. All right. So 97 says this, "Worship him, all you Elohim. Zion hears and rejoices, and the villages of Judah are glad because of your judgments, Lord. For you, Lord, are the most high over all the earth. You are exalted far above all Elohim, above all the gods. You are far above them." It's not that they don't exist. They do exist. When Moses is in Egypt and he does miracles and Pharaoh brings his guys out and they do miracles, who's giving them the power, right? That's these people, these beings. Look at Psalm 89. "The heavens praise your wonders, Lord, your faithfulness too. In the assembly of the holy ones, who in the skies above can compare with the Lord? Can compare with the Lord? Who is like the Lord among the heavenly beings? In the council of the holy ones, God is greatly feared. He is more awesome than all who surround him." The text does not present an empty heaven with God up there alone and us down here. That's not at all the space. Think of Daniel, think of, all over the place. The text is super clear. God is the ruling God, the creator of all beings, but the first ones he made are powerful. He calls them Elohim. To be that kind of being, to be a being who's going to reflect God, who's going to be called Elohim, who's going to be called a son of God in the text, same as us, we are created with free will, with the ability to choose for and against God. God wants his imagers to be able to put on Christ, to put on wisdom, to learn his ways and then rule in his stead, to rule alongside him. God wants us to be wisdom-wielding, power-wielding creatures who speak for him and with him and rule with him. Like that is not, he doesn't want us to be automatrons out there just kind of, programmed to do what's right. No, he wants wise ones, co-rulers. God wants children, sons of God. That's why we get the title Sons of God. Sons of God. If we are sons of Yahweh, then clearly we have to be able to put on wisdom. That requires us to have free will. Free will, the demonstration of that is the ability to rebel, and some of the first sons of God did that as well. All right, so that sets up this story in Revelation 12. And you'll see that John's going to tap into all of these kind of ideas through this text. Super important to understand. So here's the text that we're going to look at. So we're going to look at the descriptions of the woman and the dragon, right? So here we go. Listen to these verses. It goes like this. Where's my page? Right here. "A great sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Okay, so that's the revelation. That's the start of these. I saw this sign in heaven. Here's what it is. Part of that is probably an astrological. God is using the heavens. The heavens declare my majesty. The heavens, he's probably putting this in astrological terms, but they're telling a story. And what's the story? There's a woman with 12 stars on her head, right? And she's pregnant and about to give birth. We're going to read a little bit. The child that she is bearing is clearly Jesus. He's the coming King of Kings, the ruler of the nations, and he is snatched up to heaven, but the dragon tries to kill him. So the woman is Israel, Jesus is the kid. But there's another sign in heaven, a dragon. How is the dragon described? An enormous red dragon. He has 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his head. What is that imagery? Okay, what's that image? Let's figure this out first, okay? So let's see where John's getting this. He's going to pull this out of Daniel. And he says, this is Daniel, chapter 7. Daniel wants to know. He had the same vision. He wants to know what it means. And God tells Daniel. Here's what it says. Then I wanted to know the meaning of the 4th beast. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head. He gave me this explanation. The 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth, and the 10 horns are 10 kings that will come from this kingdom. Revelation 17 tells us about the heads. Then the angel said to me, why are you astonished? I'll explain to you the mystery of the beast, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. So we're going to see, John's going to give us the same explanation. Here's what it is. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 kings. 5 have fallen. 1 is. The other has not yet come. Then the 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom. All right, so the dragon is what? All the descriptions of all the pieces are worldly kingdoms. And the horns are kings themselves. So they're nations, right? So the dragon is described as having all these nations come together to attack the woman. How many heads does the woman have? 1 head. 1 head, 1 nation. The dragon has all the nations. What's the story? Why does who's the dragon? He's going to tell us. I'll tell you now. The dragon is Satan. Why does Satan, a fallen creature, have all the nations? The answer is because God at the Tower of Babel gave them over to the other Elohim. They were supposed to do a good job of managing the nations, and God took Israel. That's what he says. He says, they wanted other gods, and he gave them, and then he says, I will take Jacob, I will take Judah, I will take Israel as my portion. And through my portion, I am going to reclaim the nation. I am going to get you all back. So at the Tower of Babel, God gives the authority over the nations to his other Elohim, and they are supposed to do a good job. Do they all do a good job? No. Some do a terrible job. Some become outright evil and competitors with God. Some become competitors with each other, and nation goes to war against nation. We see a lot of this. Read Daniel, read Deuteronomy. We're going to look at this text right here. So we're answering the question, why does the dragon, Satan, have all the nations? Look what we hear. There's the question. Look what we hear in Deuteronomy 32. This is the song of Moses to his people, a song that Israel is to memorize and sing, right? A song of Moses. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you. Your elders, and they will tell you. When the Most High, Yahweh, gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided up mankind, He fixed the borders of the peoples according to the numbers of the sons of God, the heavenly council, the other Elohim. God divides them up, 70 or 72, depending on your text, 70 nations, and God divides them up, but the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob, his inheritance. All right. At the Tower of Babel, all the nations go astray. God appoints them because they want to throw God off. He says, fine, I will also disinherit you. He gives them their own inheritance. He takes Jacob as his inheritance. That's what it says. And notice what happened there? Let me go back. No. So here we see this showing up in Daniel. Check out Daniel. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said, Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. So Daniel's praying for understanding. He's praying to God. And this angel who's speaking to Daniel says, listen, I have been sent from God to answer your prayer and explain to you this text. Watch what he says. But the prince of the Persian kingdom, another fallen watcher, a fallen Elohim, resisted me for 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came and helped me because I was detained there with the king of Persia, possibly two different fallen Elohims. And Michael, one of Israel's chief prince, has to come help this messenger to Daniel to help him get there. These are the fallen watchers. They should have done a good job. They did not do a good job. Some are resisting the answer to prayer, able to resist needing help from Michael. Who are these people? Who are these beings? The Bible's not silent on who they are. They are the crazy word, Elohim, not Yahweh, not creators. They're created beings, but they are put in charge. They're called the prince of the kingdom of Persia and possibly the king of Persia, probably another one. Look what goes on, though. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come. Listen, I'm going to tell you stuff. Don't be afraid. You're highly esteemed, he said. So he said, do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. I've got to go, but I'm also going to come back and actually do war with the prince of Persia. And when I go, the prince of Greece is going to come. The prince of Persia is not alone. He's going to have help. I'm going to need help to fight him, and he's going to get help. The prince of Greece has their own fallen Elohim over them. But first I will tell you what is written in the book of truth, and then no one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. He said that again. And in the first year of Darius the Mede, I took my stand to support and protect him. So he's also not just helping Israel. So Michael is the prince of Israel. Whoever is speaking to Daniel might be the supporter of the Medes, right? And then the Greeks and the Persians, they're all doing war. This one, at first, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I took my stand to support him. They're not even Jewish. They have a good watcher. They have something good happening that God was working with at the time. The Bible has all these kind of stories mixed throughout all the Psalms. All the texts we read today are going to have all this kind of language. So, here's why the dragon has all the heads. Because at the Tower of Babel, God gave the nations over, and he took Israel as his inheritance. Israel is going to be, read Genesis chapter 12, the promises he gives to Abraham. Listen, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make your name great. I'll be your God. Your people will be my people. And through you, I am going to bless the whole world. Through Israel, I am going to work my way back in, and I'm going to draw the nations back to myself, and they are going to willingly overthrow their gods, and return back to me. That's the salvation plan. As you see, he takes Israel, makes them a nation of priests. They're supposed to be in the central intersections of the world, right in the Middle East. And God is supposed to begin, they're supposed to begin to reclaim the nations. Isaiah has a text where he says, listen, we failed. The nations are still unbelievers. We haven't done our job. We have failed as a nation. Anyhow, so Satan has the nations because they're his. When Satan tempts Jesus, one of his temptations is, if you will worship me, I will give you the nations. Why can Satan make that claim? Jesus doesn't say you don't have the nations to him. Satan is making the claim, and Jesus comes against him and saying, no, I'm going to trust God, because God has said in Psalm 2, which John is going to quote right in Revelation, he's going to remind us that God has made to Jesus the promise, listen, I'm going to give you the nations as your inheritance. Satan is trying to claim a promise that the Father has made to the Son. Satan's trying to say, look to me, I'll fulfill that promise. But Jesus doesn't say to him, oh, you don't have the nations. He does have the nations. So here's the question. Here's our next question we have to answer in Revelation chapter 12. Why does the dragon, we're going to see in this text that the dragon hates the child. He wants to kill the child. Why though? Why does Satan hate Jesus? That's the question. It's the central story. Why does he hate him? Not because it's good and evil and those things. There's more to it than that. Look, back to Revelation. Its tail, the tail of the dragon, swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth so that he might devour the child the moment he was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter, and her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. Psalm 2. So John's going to quote Psalm 2 to answer this question. Why does the dragon hate the child? Because the destiny of the child is to be the ruler of the nations. He's going to take the nations back, and Satan does not want to give them up. The dragon wants the nations. He wants them for himself. He loves the worship they give, and he does not want to give them back to Jesus. And just like Jesus' parable, if we can kill the son, we get to keep the prize. That's what the Pharisees thought too. And Jesus here is saying that. And so right in the text, right there, the child who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. That's a quote right out of Psalm 2. Listen to Psalm 2. It's right in the text. Here we go. Psalm 2 says this. Why do the nations conspire? And the peoples, that's nations, plot against me. The kings of the earth rise up. The rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. Yahweh laughs. Like, listen, you're not going to defeat my king. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. I will proclaim the Lord's decree. He said to me, you are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. Therefore, you kings, be wise, be warned. You rulers of the earth, serve the Lord, fear him, and celebrate his rule with trembling. Kiss the Son, or he will be angry, and your ways will lead you to destruction, for his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. That's the answer. Why does the dragon hate the child? He doesn't want to give up the nations. John quotes Psalm 2. Listen, this is very old promise from God. Psalm 2 is really quoting Genesis 49. Do I have it on here? Yes. Genesis 49, when Joseph goes to Egypt and Jacob thought he lost him forever, and then they get reunited. When Jacob is about to die, Jacob is the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. When Jacob is old and he's blessing his 12 sons and giving them blessings, this is the pronouncement he put on Judah, the tribe of Judah in Israel. And really, Psalm 2 is based right out of that blessing. Listen to the blessing. Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down to you. You are a lion's cub, Judah. You return from the prey, my son. Like a lion, he crouches and lies down. Like a lioness, who dares to rouse him? The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come, and the obedience of the nations will be his. This is the promise. This is the great promise. God undoes all the curses of the Bible, right? At the flood, well, when Adam and Eve chose to eat the fruit, what did God bless them in Genesis 3, right? The woman will have a seed and he will come and crush the head of the snake. In the flood story, right? So God curses. And where does the ark land? On Mount Ararat. What's the name Ararat mean? The curse is reversed, right? This is what God does. The curse of the Tower of Babel is that God disinherits the nations and they get lesser gods. Those are who are appointed to them. God takes Abraham and his seed and says, through them I'm going to undo that curse. I am not throwing them off forever. I'm going to reclaim them. I'm going to draw them back. When Jacob promises this to Judah, Israel's not even allowed to have kings, right? When they choose to have a king, God's like, oh, they're rejecting me. The king is coming. Like, this is pre-king, and yet this is the story that's being told. A king is going to come out and all the nations are going to bow a knee to God's king. The dragon doesn't want that. He gets the nations for a long while and he's ruling them badly, and God is going to win them back. So there's war in Revelation. The question is, why is there war, and whose war is it? So when I read the text, listen to that. Listen for those answers. Here's back to Revelation. Then the war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan. That's how we know the dragon is Satan. It says so. Who leads the whole world astray. He's in charge of the world. Is he leading them back to God? Is he managing them well? No, he's not. He's leading them astray. He's leading them away from God. He is failing as an appointed ruler over the nations. So he's judged and he's hurled to the earth with him. All right, so there's a great war in heaven. By the way, the dragon sweeping his tail and throwing a third of them to the earth. That is not the story of Satan converting a third of the angels of God to follow him because they think he can rule. That's a quote also out of Daniel 8, 9, and 10. This is the same thing. One of them came with another horn, which started small but grew up in power to the south and the east and toward the beautiful land. It grew up until it reached the host of heaven and threw some of the starry host down to the earth and then trampled on them. So the dragon, the throwing them down and throwing them down, that's a war picture. That's in the middle of war language. That's not in ages past when Satan has time to slowly deceive the other angels around him. No, it's in the middle of a war story, and they're thrown down. They're trampled on. That's going to be the dragon pushing the watchers, the angels in charge of the birth of Jesus and the care of Jesus aside, and he tries to kill the child. That's Jesus's defenders. They're pushed away. Satan goes down to kill him. God, through a vision to Joseph, says, run, take your family and run, and he gets him out of there. But that's the battle scene. This is war. This isn't a different story. That's that story. So why is there war? There's war in heaven. Whose war is it? It says that God throws Satan out, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought back. Who fought first? Michael and his angels. Whose war is it? God's war. Why is there war in heaven? Because Satan is being judged. For what? For being a bad administrator of the kingdoms. It's the fulfillment of Psalm 82. Look at Psalm 82. Again, here we go. God presides in the great assembly. God lives and reigns and rules over the great assembly. He renders judgments among the Elohim, right? Among the gods. How long? Here's what he says. How long will you defend the unjust and show partiality to the wicked? Defend the weak and the fatherless. Uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hands of the wicked. Stop doing bad. Like you are powerful. You come, do what's right. Rule the nations in my stead. I called you gods. I called you Elohim. You're sons of God. Do a good job. They don't. So he says, the gods, the Elohim know nothing. They understand nothing. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. I said to you, you are Elohim, and you are all sons of the Most High, but you will die like mere mortals, like every other ruler. Rise up, O God, judge the earth, for all the nations are your inheritance. That is like the culmination of the story. This is literally the fulfillment of that. I gave you the nations. You're supposed to lead them back to me, but you decided to keep the worship for yourself, so I'm going to overthrow you. Do good, not bad, but no, so you're going to die like mere mortals. There's war in heaven. They're thrown down. They're thrown to earth, and they're going to lose, and they're going to die, and they're going to be judged along with people. Look what Isaiah says. Again, Isaiah is going to pull the same stuff out and put it all together. It's amazing. The floodgates of the heavens are open. The foundations of the earth shake. The earth is broken up. The earth is split asunder. The earth is violently shaken. The earth reels like a drunkard. It sways like a hut in the wind. So heavy upon it is the guilt of its rebellion that it falls, never to rise again. Why? Because the guilt of its rebellion. Who's leading that rebellion? The fallen watchers. They're leading them astray. They're becoming idols and demons to them and leading them to wickedness and not goodness. Psalm 82. Listen to how Isaiah finishes. In the day of judgment, in that day, the Lord will punish the powers in heavens above and the kings on the earth below. They will be herded together like prisoners bound in a dungeon. That's the story of Revelation. It's the central story of the Bible. God is filling everything in every way with good watchers who are loyal and going to reflect Christ. He's going to create other beings with the same status. Unbelievers and believers alike are created in the image of God. Some humans will rebel. Some angels rebelled. Some spiritual beings that God gave the status of Elohim to have rebelled, and all the rebellious ones are going to be herded together alike and die like mere mortals. They're going to be done with. And then when the new heavens and new earth are there, we're going to have faithful Elohim. We're going to have faithful watchers. We're going to have faithful humans, all imagers of God, filling everything in every way. God is going to judge fallen watchers, fallen Elohim, and fallen people all together with the same punishment. That's why there's war in heaven. Who wins? Who loses? Revelation. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters, who accuses them before our God day and night, has been hurled down. Notice who he's accusing. I always thought he was accusing us here on earth. So in heaven, he just kept pointing out our sin. It's really not the story of what this is talking about. Look. The ones he's accusing, have triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, so they are believers. They did not love their lives so to shrink from death. Are they alive or dead? They're dead. They're in heaven. Satan has and is right now today still accusing our brothers and sisters in heaven who are already there. Like, they don't deserve to be here. They are losers. Like, look at them. Like, they are not good imagers, and heaven is sick of it. And so warn heaven, they're thrown out. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and who dwell in them. Who wins? God, heaven, and the saints in heaven. Finally, the voice of Satan is thrown out of heaven. It's still up there today. This is future. This is in the tribulation. Who loses? Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury because he knows his time is short. He's thrown out in the middle of the tribulation. He comes down, he attacks the woman. That's next week's sermon. He's going to attack the woman. God's going to protect her for 3.5 years. That's the end of the tribulation. This takes place in the middle of the tribulation. Satan today is still accusing him. Here's the big story. That John is the central story in the book of Revelation, the central story of the Bible is, listen, God wants his imagers, us faithful Christians, to help him win back the nations, to help him rule in the image of Christ, to put on wisdom, So there are still 2 billion people on this planet who would claim to be followers of Jesus. Imagine if we would all advance the kingdom literally only this far. If we would all advance the kingdom a foot into darkness, 2 billion of us, what distance we would cover. Like, this is no joke. This is real. There's a real battle for the real nations. They're promised to Jesus. Every knee will bow to Jesus. Satan is not going to give them up easy. We can't give up ground easy. We have to stick in here, do the work, don't give up, never lose your zeal serving the Lord. That's the story John's putting all in a nutshell here. Is like, listen, this is it. This is what your life should be about. Somehow you have the ability to contribute to the reclaiming of the nations. You can give, you can serve, you can pray, you can fight for it. You can invite people to church. You can invite people to Bible study. You can yourself put on wisdom, put on the word, learn it step by step, get into the Bible, become a spokesman for God. Join the fight, because the fight is real. Jesus wins the fight. But that's what's going on in Revelation 12. All right. Not a sermon, but kind of the information's there, so you can pick it up next week. All right. Thanks for listening.